I'm Jeannie, and welcome Pastor Bernard to the Book by My Bedside.
Morning.
Now, Pastor Bernard, you must have a pretty big bedside table because you got 3 books for us today. Is that right?
That is right, Jenny, but they're not on my bedside table because if I read at night, I fall asleep far too quickly. So I have a nice, comfy old chair with a reading light, and I settle into that. And that's how I've been reading my 3 books. Thank you.
Great. Well, would you like to tell us about the first book, please?
I will. I will say that these 3 are very contrasting books. It may not work on Zoom, but I'm holding up my Kindle. I am a great lover of the Kindle. I like to do a lot of research on the internet, both sides of the fence. So I'm currently looking at historic topics, social topics, church history, church doctrine, but I also balance that out with good old humor and some guitar music across many genres. So if you said, well, what are your favorite style of books? I like crime. I like thrillers, mystery, history, and biographies. And I'm going to put a plug in, which you can leave in the interview or take out as you wish. But I get a lot of free books. Whoops, there we go. Free books on the Kindle, which I love. And you can get these from what is known as the fussylibrarian.com. And it's perfectly legitimate, it's legal, and once a week they will send you a selection of books, not just for Kindle, for all the e-readers that are out there. And that's how I source mine. I check ones I want, download them direct to the Kindle, and we're away. So the first book, oh, there we go. The first book is called My Brother the King. It's by an author called Jubilee Lipsey, and I've got some notes so I don't get the details wrong. It's all about the life of David when he was a shepherd boy, and then it follows his journey through to becoming the king of Israel, but it's told from the viewpoint of what turned out to be his best friend, which is Prince Jonathan, King Saul's son. It's part of a trilogy, and I'm going to read the other 2. I'd say this as a pastor, it stays mainly true to the biblical text, but because it's written in a biographical and historical style, it does add a lot. We get inside the mind and the spirit of all the key people: King Saul, David, Jonathan, Jesse, David's father, his brothers, people in the royal court. There's a lot of lovely painting of pictures with words. It does reimagine stuff. It does flesh out the biblical text, but I would say it doesn't take liberties. It just adds to the story, in my opinion. For me, it brings out David's incredible loyalty to King Saul, despite Saul's dark, constant moods, jealousy, and threats. And it even takes us inside David's own walk with God. And I found it very helpful because it helped me to realize just what David was going through. And as you go through David's life story, the author has very cleverly interwoven all of the Psalms at the points they would have happened in his life. And I would say, if I summarized it, it's a bumpy, it's a volatile ride, but it's towards the throne of Israel, and God's in charge. So great book. Go get it. Download it for free.
That sounds a great book to read. So you found this book a challenging book?
I did, because sometimes when the Bible has got a lot of details, but sometimes you have to read a bit between the lines. We don't always get what's going on within the character. Maybe with David we do, because he wrote the Psalms, and so we get all of the battles that were going in there. But it challenged me that actually on my way to whatever God has for me, there are going to be a lot of very powerful knocks along the way. There could be rejection, there could be misunderstanding, there could be all sorts of things happening. But ultimately, the great news is we will make it.
Great. And tell us about your second book that you've been reading.
Book. Oh, I'm going to name drop now, Jenny. This book is written by a friend of mine.
Great.
And he's got the lovely title of the Reverend Canon Jonathan Ford. He's a recently retired CV minister. I've known him since he was a young man, and I've made a list of his skills here. He's an author, a painter, an orator. He sat on the General Synod for 25 years, and he's an all-round nice, humble bloke. I would say he's an academic and an intellectual, but he's not one of those proud people. It's his first book. It's not going to be his last, because it's got great rave reviews on Amazon. Now, I'll tell you the details of how to get it in a moment, but it's an ebook or a hardback. our local paper. Yeah, it's not going to work, is it? No, I'm holding up. There you go.
Oh,
Just about see it there.
yes, we
That's
can.
his lovely face. That warranted a double spread in our local paper. So, he's really getting known as a great author. Anyway, here's the title. It's called A Day in the Death of Charlie Vaughan. It's written in the style of C.S. Lewis. So if you like Lewis and that kind of stuff, you'll love it. And it follows Charlie, who gets knocked down and killed on a zebra crossing. And he passes into the afterlife. And in the afterlife, he gets a whole new perspective along with a brand new body. And the narrative takes us between heaven and hell and earth. And it even introduces us to supporting angels, talking and flying dogs of all things, while Charlie combats the evil powers. Charlie's been given a mission by heaven. His mission, aided by the heavenly beings, is to prevent the young man who knocked him down on the zebra crossing from taking his own life with suicide, and to get him in some way safely to heaven. I found it, well, not quite impossible, but very hard to put down. You get a book like that, you want to go from chapter to chapter to chapter. And the way Jonathan has painted the picture, again, as a Christian minister, he's rearranged things quite a bit in the text. He's not saying it's true to the Bible. He's just looking at it from another angle. For me, Jenny, it had a powerful impact, and I'll tell you why, because it helped me to see again the incredible struggle that there is happening for the lives of men and women, and how as Christians it's so important that we do everything we can to share our faith. And again, it highlighted the real power of prayer and the impact it has in this. I can only describe it as a titanic struggle. So I recommend it to you, A Day in the Death of Charlie Vaughan. You can just search for that title on Amazon and you can download it. It's not cheap. It's $9.99, which is not cheap for a download, but never mind. Or you can get it on hardback from Jotham, Jotham 1957.co.uk. And if you ever come down to beautiful Suffolk, you can probably buy it in the Cathedral Bookshop. Pastor Bernie says, I recommend it.
Well, you certainly sold that book to us this morning, Bernard. And it sounds a fascinating book to me. It really does. So what is your third and final book that you want to tell us about today?
Well, this one is an actual physical book, Jenny, and I'm going to try and lift it up. And
Okay.
There we go. Oh, put it that way. It's called
I can see it.
Hard Sayings of the Bible. It's nearly 900 pages long.
Wow.
And I'll have to tell you a little bit about this. It's by 4 different scholars, and it was published in 1996 by IVP, which is short for InterVarsity Press, but it's still in print. And if you search by that title on Amazon, you'll see it. Cheapest I could see it in paperback was £14. I don't think it's available as a download, but I am happy because I got it for £1 in a church bookshop in Aberdeen. What a bargain. Anyway,
Definitely.
as it's written by 4 different authors, you get a panoramic view of all those challenging and difficult texts and passages in the Bible. And let's be honest, when we share our faith, especially with intelligent seekers, they'll very quickly point out to us what they see as contradictions, things that are not the same in different books of the Bible. I could give you a long list. I won't. I'll simply say this. If you've ever chatted to people, you know that there are many hard things to understand in the scripture. Was it God? Was it the devil? Who did it? Here's a little word of warning. Not all books are for all people. I don't pretend to be an intellectual. I don't pretend to be clever, but I will say it is not a light read. But if you're serious about your faith and you want to have a reasoned, intellectual, but spiritual answer to put for people about those challenging texts we come across, the alleged discrepancies and inaccuracies, then you're going to have to read this book. Here's my tip for reading it, Jenny. Read it 2 or 3 pages at a time. It taxed me intellectually and cognitively, and on a couple of occasions, yes, I have nodded off while reading it because I read far too much. And the arguments that the authors make, you really have to think them through and say, is that correct? Isn't that correct? If I say after, I don't know, how long have I had it? 2 years, maybe 3, I'm still only halfway through reading it. but you can also use it as a reference book, because at the back there's a bibliography, if that's the right word, or an index. So say you come across 1 Samuel 19:4, I've no idea what that is, and you want to look it up, you can look it up in there, and it'll give you the arguments for the different challenges that you find in the text. So it's, it's an excellent book, particularly if you lean a little bit towards the scholastic. I wouldn't recommend it for a young Christian, but for an older Christian, definitely. So those are my 1, 2, 3 books. They're all very different because I try and balance out my reading. In fact, I'm nearly at the end of Jonathan Ford's book, so I shall be looking for another one. So I've really enjoyed reading them, and they've worked for me. Maybe they'll work for others.
This sounds a really serious book to read. Do you think it's changed your views?
Yes, it has, because how it helped me, it helped me to check my thinking. And I realized that along the way in life, as I'd listened to other ministers and teachings, sometimes I'm not one that, I don't think we should go out being overly critical, but we should nevertheless have an analytical mind and say, you know what, I'll go away and think about that. Because in the scripture it says, doesn't it, that Paul commended the Bereans because they examined the doctrine to see if it was correct. Yeah. So it's a book for that kind of thinking where you say, well, is that really so? And I'd truthfully say that a lot of churches, I have to be careful now, it's a generalization, a number of churches today maybe don't have a depth in them that they should have, and then they go shipwrecked because they start following all kinds of weird and wonderful things. That book will keep you on the straight and narrow. Is it 100% accurate? Well, it's subjective, isn't it? It's a matter of opinion. But I haven't found much to fault it from my humble standpoint. So it's kept me, Jenny, because it's given me an answer to say to people where previously I didn't have one.
Brilliant. Sounds fascinating, all 3 books today. So could you just give us the title of those 3 books again, please?
Happy to do it, Jenny, and not patronizing anybody, but I'll do it nice and slowly. So the first one is an ebook on Kindle or any other e-reader. It's called My Brother the King. The author is Jubilee Lipsey, and it's all about David the shepherd boy, or you may find it as part of a trilogy. If you can get it for free for a trilogy, you'll do very well, but I'm certainly going to get the second too. Then the second one is called, excuse me, A Day in the Death of Charlie Vaughan. It's by the Reverend Canon Jonathan Ford. And again, if you search for it, you'll find it to download it, or you can get it from the webpage I referred. And the last one, and let me get this accurate, Hard Sayings of the Bible, 1996 by InterVarsity Press, still widely available. Just search by title on the internet, on Amazon. I know it's there because I checked before I came on, and you'll get it. And may God bless you in your reading.
Bernard, thank you for recommending these 3 books to Living Stones Church on the internet this morning. Thank you, Bernard.
Thank you. My pleasure, Jenny. Have a lovely day, everyone. God bless.
God bless you.